we need to talk about morally gray men. Because according to every podcast bro with a microphone and unresolved mommy issues, all women apparently only like toxic alpha males, whether we'll admit it or not.
A woman is more attracted to a man who gives a little bit of mystery. So let me give you an example. Let's imagine we were on a date. You say, what's your job? And I say, I look after my people. That's my job.
And listen, on paper, the men that women obsess over should absolutely prove them right. Black clothes, tattoos, dry humor, coffee black on whiskey neat, probably emotionally unavailable for at least 3 chapters. And yet, the fictional men that women obsess over are completely different from manosphere alpha bros on an emotional level. Because somehow, against all logic, these men feel dangerous and safe. They feel exciting, protective, emotionally intimate, darkly funny, often smarter than everyone else in the room. And they make women feel more like themselves, not less. So today, I want to talk about why morally gray MMCs are so addictive, why women love them, why the manosphere completely misunderstands the appeal, and whether loving morally gray fictional men means that we all need therapy. Okay, let's start with the obvious question. Why are these men so hot? And no, I'm not going to pretend that it is purely psychological, because some of it is just vibes. Like, I'm so sorry to science, but science cannot fully explain the effect of a fictional man wearing black and staring at you like he knows your deepest fear. Sometimes women see a tattoo sleeve, emotional damage, and a morally flexible attitude and go,
yep, unfortunately, this is my type.
But here's the thing, the fantasy is not actually bad behavior. The fantasy is competence, because human beings are deeply attracted to competence. It feels safe, it feels exciting. It says, if things go wrong, this person can handle it. And morally gray MMCs always feel deeply competent. They're strategic, resourceful, calm under pressure, usually 10 steps ahead of everyone else. They don't panic, they adapt, they survive. Take Xaden from 4th Wing, because Xaden is basically competence wrapped in black leather. And listen, I am not saying that the tattoos are not doing a lot of heavy lifting here. They absolutely are. But what makes Xaden actually compelling isn't just that he looks dangerous, it's that he feels capable. He can handle himself. He walks into chaos like he already has 3 backup plans and an emergency exit strategy. He's calm under pressure, strategic, protective, and deeply competent in ways that do not feel performative. And most importantly, his confidence never feels fragile. He's not constantly trying to prove himself. He just knows who he is, which is hot. By the way, if you love 4th Wing, I recently did a video about everything we know so far about the new adaptation, what the showrunners are going to absolutely have to get right, and what a huge deal this is for romantasy as a genre. You can check it out here if you're interested. But here's the detail I think matters most, and the thing that most manosphere guys completely miss. Xaden doesn't just embody competence. He wants Violet to be competent too. He recognizes her need for independence, for self-reliance, for capability. And instead of shrinking her, overprotecting her, or treating her as someone fragile who needs managing, he pushes her to become stronger, to trust herself, to survive, to rise to the level that he already sees in her. And psychologically, that is such a huge distinction. Because competence feels safe, but somebody who believes in your competence, someone who sees your full potential before you even see it yourself, that feels empowering. And honestly, I think that's one of the most misunderstood aspects about the attraction to these types of characters. Women are not fantasizing about helplessness. The fantasy is, I know you're strong enough to do this, and I'll stand by your side while you figure it out. The black clothes, the danger aura, the confidence, very fun. Excellent aesthetic, no complaints. But the fantasy only works when it's paired with deep respect. The second that confidence becomes entitlement, the second protective becomes controlling, the fantasy dies immediately. Because the aura of danger is not the same thing as actual danger. So why do fictional men who objectively commit crimes somehow feel emotionally safer than men whose entire personality is a podcast clip about masculine dominance? How did we get here? And I think the answer is contained danger. Morally gray MMCs feel dangerous, but selective. Dangerous to the world, but safe to her. One of the best examples of this is Damon Salvatore from the Vampire Diaries. Yes, he's messy, sometimes self-destructive, sometimes morally questionable in ways that absolutely would not pass a real-life relationship audit. But fiction is the space where we explore emotional truths without real-world consequences. And the emotional truth that Damon represents is this: what if I didn't have to shrink myself to be loved? What if I could be fully myself, even the parts I'm told are too much, and still be desired? That's the fantasy. Not danger, freedom. And this is where I need to briefly drag Stefan, because Stefan's version of love often becomes protection through restriction, overprotection, control disguised as care. Don't do this, stay here, be safe, shrink yourself. And listen, Stefan girlies, I see you, I respect you, please lower your pitchforks. I'm doing a rewatch right now, and I do love how emotionally supportive Stefan is in the early seasons. But Damon's dynamic with Alina feels psychologically different. Damon trusts her capability. He challenges her. He pushes her. He lets her be angry, messy, complicated. He doesn't make her smaller in order to keep her safe. He sees her for who she actually is and says, okay, be that. This is such a huge fantasy for women, because we spend so much of our lives being managed, protected, corrected, made smaller, be nicer, quieter, don't want too much, don't be angry, don't be selfish, don't be messy. And then along comes an emotionally damaged vampire with icy blue eyes going, actually, you don't have to fit into a perfect little box for me to love you. And we fold immediately. Because what feels safe isn't perfection. It's emotional permission. It's someone saying, I see all of you, the messy parts too. You do not have to perform goodness to deserve love. And this is exactly where morally gray MMCs really start to separate themselves from the internet's version of alpha masculinity. Plenty of men can cosplay dominance, but confidence and surface level riz alone are not enough. If you enjoy psychologically overanalyzing fictional men for the sake of internet science, this is your reminder to like, subscribe, and because these videos take me an embarrassingly long time to make, there's now a buy me a coffee if you want to support the channel and fund my ongoing commitment to obsessing over stories with you guys. So if morally gray MMCs are so powerful, so magnetic, so emotionally addictive, why don't manosphere alpha males understand the appeal? Because on the surface, they think they've cracked the code. They look at these men and go strong, dominant, confident, unbothered, high status, and they assume that's the whole fantasy. But they're missing out on the most important part. Because morally gray MMCs are not attractive because they are dominant. They're attractive because their dominance doesn't require female submission. And that's a very different thing. ACOTAR actually gives us the perfect comparison for this. Because look at Feyre under Tamlin. There is a very narrow window of acceptable behavior. What she wears, what she eats, who she talks to, what she talks about, where she goes, how much danger she's allowed near, how much autonomy she gets. Everything becomes restriction in the name of protection. And this is exactly what toxic masculinity often misunderstands about attraction. Because so much of that worldview treats women like accessories, status symbols, things to manage, beautiful, obedient little extensions of male identity. Be feminine, be agreeable, be submissive, be super hot but low maintenance, be supportive of his goals but not ambitious with your own, confident but not threatening, interesting but not difficult, tiny, digestible. And women are sitting there like, bro, that sounds exhausting. And that is where Rhysand feels completely different. Because Rhys is absolutely dominant, confident, powerful, protective, terrifying, honestly. The man radiates, I could destroy everyone in this room. And yet, his power is not built on hierarchy. It's not submit to me, shrink for me, obey me. His version of power says grow, become, take up space, challenge me, lead beside me. So much of manosphere masculinity is built on control, on who's above who, proving dominance in every interaction. Real leadership is about creating conditions where people can become fully themselves and really shine. And what women often mean when we say that we like dominant men is not that we want ownership and possession, not hierarchy, not emotional smallness. What we want is someone grounded enough to lead without constantly needing full control. Someone confident enough to admire power in others. Someone strong enough to support rather than suppress, not unquestioning submission. Okay, so far we've talked about competence, freedom, confidence, but none of that fully explains why women become completely obsessed with these fictional men. Because something eventually happens when a tough boy falls in love. The morally gray MMC gets soft. Specifically, soft with one person. This is the quintessential hard on the outside, ooey gooey on the inside thing that women actually go crazy for. Ilya Rozanov from Heated Rivalry is such a perfect example of this dynamic. Public Ilya, absolute menace. Cocky, sharp-tongued, emotionally evasive, weaponized humor. The kind of man who seems permanently 2 seconds away from either ruining your life or making an inappropriate joke at a funeral. Emotionally, he presents as someone that absolutely should not be trusted. And then Shane happens. And suddenly this sarcastic little chaos gremlin becomes weirdly attentive, protective, caretaking, and soft in ways that he doesn't let the rest of the world see. And if you're a fan of Heated Rivalry, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Tuna melts, Russians who absolutely do not blush, and emotional honesty at the cottage. God, the cottage. One of romance's deepest fantasies is not actually, I can fix him. The fantasy is something much more intimate, more vulnerable. It's this. What if someone difficult to love trusted me enough to become soft? What if someone who trusts almost no one trusted me? Because that vulnerability feels earned. And earned intimacy is incredibly psychologically powerful. There's actually research showing that emotional exclusivity, being let into someone's inner world, creates unusually strong feelings of intimacy and attachment, especially when that vulnerability feels selective. It's the difference between earning a cat's affection and a dog's affection. It's not,
Oh, he's like this with everyone.
it's, no one else gets to see this. And that hits somewhere primal. The sharp edges don't disappear. He's still sarcastic, morally complicated, still hot in black clothing for reasons science refuses to explain, but now there's softness, domesticity, gentleness, care. And weirdly, that makes the fantasy more compelling, not less exciting. The emotional fantasy was never about turning a dangerous man into a golden retriever. It's when that dangerous man chooses tenderness for me. This is where manosphere masculinity completely faceplants. Because if your entire concept of masculinity depends on emotional distance, domination, or proving superiority at all times, you fundamentally misunderstand what women are responding to. Women are not fantasizing about tough men who never soften. We're fantasizing about men who are strong enough to soften. Men who are secure enough to be emotionally intimate without feeling diminished by it. Men who don't see vulnerability as weakness, but trust, connection, love, and yes, maybe while wearing head-to-toe black leather. By this point in the video, I hope you already know the answer to this, but does loving morally gray MMCs mean that we all secretly have terrible, toxic taste in men? Are we romantically doomed? Should we be concerned? The answer is sometimes, but mostly no. Because fictional morally gray men and real-life emotionally unavailable men are not the same thing. A healthy morally gray man in real life might be confident, a little rebellious, tatted up, darkly funny, playful, socially unconventional, and a little morally flexible in interesting ways. Maybe he bends the rules. Maybe an authority figure hates to see him coming. But crucially, he respects women. He keeps his word. He's emotionally accountable and protective without being controlling. He's capable without being condescending. He has an internal moral code, even if it doesn't always align with polite society. What women are usually attracted to is integrity with edge, not dysfunction, because there is a massive difference between morally gray and emotionally unavailable with abs in a podcast. If you enjoyed this deeply scientific explanation for why your book boyfriends live rent-free in your head, first of all, welcome. You're among friends here. Second, subscribe, because apparently my niche is overanalyzing fictional relationships until we all accidentally learn something about ourselves. Also, if this topic hit for you, be sure to check out my Shane and Ilya deep dive, because these two men deserve their own case study. And now I need you to tell me in the comments, who is your ultimate morally gray MMC? And what exactly makes them work for you? For science, obviously. All right, guys, that is it. That is all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.